Mountain Echo. Chapter 1: Foam Trail. Truth never rises to the surface immediately. It seeps into reality like the fog I've seen so many times in the Colorado mountains. At first just a silvery haze on the horizon, then a dense curtain enveloping everything around, and when it finally dissipates, you realize you're standing on the very edge of a precipice, and any wrong move could be fatal. That's exactly how I felt that damp November evening, sitting in the corridor of the intensive care unit, behind whose doors doctors were fighting for my father-in-law's life. The fluorescent lights above my head hummed like a disturbed beehive, a sound forever etched in my memory after dozens of mountain rescue operations. My hands, once capable of holding a climber on belay in 50-degree frost for hours, now treacherously trembled, crumpling a paper cup of cold hospital coffee, as bitter as the realization that was slowly growing through the thickness of years lived. The silence was cut by the sound of rubber soles on linoleum. A young nurse, her badge read Emma Rodriguez, stopped next to me, lightly touching my shoulder. In her gaze, I read that special compassion inherent to people who look death in the eyes daily. "Mr. McAllister," her voice was soft like the rustle of autumn leaves, "Mr. Palmer's condition has stabilized. You can visit him briefly, but please don't tire the patient with conversation." I stood up, and the old fracture in my ankle, a reminder of that almost fatal rescue operation on Mount Hood, responded with a familiar pulsation. This damn bone always started aching before trouble, like a natural barometer, my personal predictor of catastrophes. I took out my phone and dialed Veronica's number for the fourth time. The dial tone stretched endlessly, like a rope crossing over a bottomless abyss. "Ryan," her usually melodious voice sounded strangely cold, like a mountain stream in January. "Has something happened?" "Veronica," my mouth suddenly went dry, as if after a long trek across a waterless plateau. "Your father is in intensive care." He suddenly started foaming at the mouth. There was a pause, heavy and dense, like a pre-storm sky in the mountains. Then came her intermittent sigh. "Dad, my God." Something elusive flickered in her intonation, some false note that made me wary. "And you, are you all right, Ryan?" These words struck me like a sudden rockfall, unexpected and merciless. That very sense of danger that had saved my life many times in the mountains now pierced my entire body, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "Why are you asking about me?" My voice became as hard as rock. "Your father is dying and you're worried." "No, no, I just—" she faltered, and in this hesitation I sensed the presence of something dark, lurking between words like a mountain predator between rocks. "I'm glad you're okay. Take care of Dad, all right. I urgently need to run, can't talk. I'll call you back." The connection broke, leaving me in the echoing solitude of the corridor, permeated with the smell of sterility and fear. The intensive care unit greeted me with the steady beeping of monitors and the smell of ozone from the equipment. Howard lay on impeccably white sheets, entangled in wires and tubes like a climber caught in his own gear. His usually tanned face now resembled a faded stone, worn smooth by winds and time. "Son," his voice was weak, like the last breath of a winter wind, "I'm completely baffled. What happened?" I looked at the IV drip counting down the seconds of his life and felt a dark wave rising inside. My fingers found Liam Sheldon's contact in my phone, my longtime friend from the investigation department. While the phone played long dial tones, a whirlpool of conjectures swirled in my head, like the rapid current of a mountain river. Chapter 2: Birthday. It all began on my 46th birthday, a damp November Thursday when heavy clouds hung over the city, as if ready to crash down in a snow avalanche at any moment. For the last couple of years, Veronica seemed to have completely erased this date from her calendar, like forgetting a route one no longer intends to follow. No gifts, no congratulations, just the familiar emptiness in our wooden house on the outskirts and a cool good morning before her hasty departure. At the school where I taught geography to high school students, the day dragged on endlessly. I talked about the formation of mountain ranges while my mind was spinning with thoughts about my own marital canyon, which grew deeper and more impassable with each passing year. Years of rescue work had taught me not to attach importance to dates. In the mountains, only now matters, but something inside still ached, like an old injury in bad weather. I returned home earlier than usual, around 4. Lately, our dwelling resembled an abandoned mountain cabin. Veronica constantly stayed late at her pharmaceutical company, returning deep after midnight. Her aroma, a mixture of juniper and bergamot, had evaporated from the rooms like the smell of a campfire after rain, leaving only a ghostly memory of former intimacy. On the kitchen table stood a cake I had bought for myself, an organic blueberry pie from that eco-bakery in the Hawthorne district, where we once celebrated our first anniversary. I was planning to spend the evening as usual. A glass of local Pinot Noir, old photos from mountain hikes, and bitter reflections on how 11 years of marriage had turned to ruins. The creak of the opening front door yanked me from my gloomy thoughts. Veronica appeared on the threshold, unexpectedly animated, with a flush on her cheeks and a bag from Ecological Future, the most expensive organic market in town. "Happy birthday, dear." Her voice rang like a mountain stream, breaking the habitual silence of the house. "Did you really think I forgot? Open it quickly, I spent so long choosing." In the elegant craft bag, I found a Suunto Traverse Alpha watch, exactly the model for alpinists and trekkers that I had been eyeing in the window of a specialized store on Pine Street. The titanium case gleamed dully in the light of the desk lamp, and my heart skipped a beat. After so many years of coldness, such a gift seemed almost unreal. "Veronica, this is," I faltered, examining the multifunctional display. "Wait, that's not all." She impulsively hugged me and took out an elegant wooden box with an engraving from her bag. "This is special coffee, darling. You have no idea what effort it took me to get it. The seller said it's grown on volcanic slopes in Hawaii and harvested only at dawn when the first rays of sun touch the green beans. They say it brings enlightenment and restores life energy." Her eyes shone as in the first years of our acquaintance, and for a moment it seemed that everything could return. Our long evenings by the fireplace, joint walks along forest trails, the warmth of shared dreams. But suddenly she glanced at her watch, and her face changed, like a mountain landscape suddenly shrouded in clouds. "Ryan, honey," she bit her lip, and the thin wrinkle between her brows betrayed sudden anxiety. "I'm sorry, I know how this looks, but I feel terribly awkward, but I need to urgently fly on a business trip. A new office in Seattle, an emergency drug launch. I need to be there by morning. Let's celebrate your day when I return." Without waiting for my answer, she was already taking a backpack from the closet, hastily packing things. Her movements were sharp, impulsive, quite unlike her usual flowing grace. "I promise we'll have a real celebration when I get back. And in the meantime, try this coffee, it really is special." She froze for a moment, as if remembering something important. "Only please enjoy it completely, and this is important. It needs to be drunk within 20 minutes after opening the vacuum packaging. That's what the seller said. Only then do all the volcanic notes reveal themselves. All right, I'm kissing you, I'm running off. Sorry again, dear." Something alarming flashed in her voice in the haste of packing, in how she carefully avoided meeting my eyes. But before I could think about it, she was already kissing me on the cheek, leaving a light trail of her favorite juniper perfume and slipping out the door like a mountain doe fleeing pursuit. I was left alone in the living room, looking at the expensive watch and strange coffee, when there was a knock at the door. My father-in-law Howard stood on the threshold, a fit former forest ranger in his favorite flannel shirt with leather patches on the elbows. His pipe emitted the familiar aroma of cherry tobacco. "Was driving by, thought I'd drop in on the birthday boy." He held out a bottle of locally distilled bourbon. "Hope I'm not interrupting. I see Veronica's already vanished. Her hybrid isn't in its usual spot. How sad, how sad. Quite improper this is. Come in, of course, Howard. We'll try this special coffee she brought. Says it's some rare Hawaiian variety. I took out the best handmade ceramic mugs, a wedding gift from Veronica's parents. I poured the aromatic beverage, admiring its rich chestnut color. Howard brought the mug to his lips, took one sip. I literally stepped away to the refrigerator for milk for just a minute, and when I returned, I saw his face contorted in a grimace of pain. The ceramic fell from his hands, shattered on the stone floor, the dark liquid spreading in an ominous stain across the natural hemp fiber rug. Foam began coming from Howard's mouth, his eyes rolled back, showing the whites. His body tensed like a stretched climbing rope, and then went limp. A minute later, he was lying unconscious on the floor of our living room, amid the shards of the broken mug and spilled coffee soaking into the eco-friendly rug. The events of the next few hours merged into one nightmarish kaleidoscope. The call to emergency services, piercing sirens, the cold corridors of the emergency department. Veronica didn't answer calls for several hours. When I finally got through to her, her first words shocked me to the core. "Ryan, oh my God, how awful. Dad's in trouble, and are you all right? What could have caused this?" Something strange sounded in her voice. Not a daughter's concern for her father, but some other feeling that I couldn't yet name. She seemed surprised to hear my voice, as if she hadn't expected me to answer the call. "Veronica, your father is in intensive care. No one understands anything yet. The doctors are continuing their examination." "Yes, yes, I hear you," she interrupted me hastily, almost irritably. "The main thing is that you're okay. Take care of Dad, will you? I need to go." Short beeps hung in the air, leaving me in complete bewilderment in the middle of the hospital corridor. Why was she reacting so strangely? Why did she first ask about my condition, not her father's? Questions multiplied in my head like ripples on a mountain lake. In the intensive care unit, Howard lay under IVs, entangled in wires, while doctors spoke of some poisoning by an unknown substance. Chapter 3: Secrets. After talking with the doctors, I returned to our house, where every object now seemed part of some sinister spectacle. Howard remained in the hospital under observation, pale, entangled in tubes but alive. And I couldn't shake the obsessive feeling that I was at the epicenter of an approaching storm. Anxious thoughts multiplied in my head like reflections in disturbed water of a mountain lake, and every ripple showed a new facet of the nightmare. The house smelled of her perfume, juniper and bergamot, a scent I once loved, but now it seemed foreign and false, like our relationship. Years of rescue work demanded action, methodical, thoughtful, decisive. I began my investigation, as if forging a path through a dangerous mountain pass. First, I checked Veronica's credit card statement. Among the usual purchases at Whole Grain Paradise and Ecological Future, I discovered a whole series of strange transactions. Some suspicious online stores with vague names, as if specially created not to attract attention. The amounts were substantial but not large enough to alert the bank. A classic technique of splitting payments. I remembered similar cases from environmental terrorism cases that Liam Sheldon and I had discussed. Her laptop stood on the desk in the study. In her haste, she hadn't even bothered to password protect it. Apparently, she considered me too technically illiterate for such checks. The browser history turned out to be a real descent into a dark cave leading to a terrifying world of chemical formulas and poisons. Organic toxins without smell or taste. Optimal dosage for a man weighing 90 kg. How to calculate a lethal dose. These searches sent a chill through me, as if I was back in an icy crevasse on Mount Hood without equipment. In the recycle bin, I found deleted correspondence from some encrypted forums. Veronica had consulted anonymous experts about the effects of various toxins. How long do traces remain in the body? Can it be detected during a standard autopsy? After what time does an irreversible effect occur? Each new question was like an ice axe blow to a frozen heart. Looking through her desk among stacks of pharmaceutical journals and bills, I stumbled upon a crumpled sheet with a natal chart. Name compatibility, Veronica and Jason. The handwriting was uneven, as if she had written it in great agitation. Jason Elliott, her colleague from the pharmaceutical company, the same one she constantly held up to me as an example. Look at Jason, her voice echoed in my memory, with that special intonation whose meaning I was only now beginning to understand. He never controls Lauren, doesn't demand an account of where she was and why she was late. That's what mature relationships mean. Memories cascaded in an avalanche, how she admired his progressive approach to partnership, how often she mentioned his name in conversations, how their business trips amazingly coincided in time. As if the fog had cleared before my eyes and I saw the whole picture, ugly, like a scar from a rockfall on a mountainside. With trembling fingers, I dialed her office number. An energetic secretary's voice sounded on the line. Nature Pharma Company, how can I help you? Hello, this is Ryan McAllister. I tried to speak calmly, though everything inside was bubbling like a geyser. My wife, Veronica, went on a business trip and forgot important documents with a colleague. She asked me to pick them up from Jason Elliott. Could you? Oh, the secretary hesitated, and in this pause I heard more than in any confession. But Mrs. McAllister isn't on a business trip. She took 3 days of unpaid leave. And Mr. Elliott, by the way, did too. Quite spontaneously, I'd say. And it's strange that she asked to pass something. Usually, they sort everything out between themselves directly, if you know what I mean. The last words hung in the air like an echo in a mountain gorge. I thanked the secretary and ended the call. Blood pounded in my temples. All these years, all these late returns, all these sudden business trips. They used work as a cover for their meetings, performed a spectacle in front of everyone, and I, a professional tracker, didn't see the obvious signs. The next call was the hardest. Lauren, Jason's wife, lived with him in an eco-friendly house made of recycled materials in Lake Oswego. For several months, she had suspected her husband of infidelity. Too many unplanned presentations, too many unanswered messages, too frank glances from some colleagues. She had even installed a GPS tracker on his electric car, but was afraid to check the data. Sometimes the fear of knowing the truth is stronger than the truth itself. Now all the puzzle pieces fell into place, forming a terrifying panorama. Veronica and Jason had planned a carefully thought-out murder, my murder. Insurance, property, freedom to start a new life together. Everything was supposed to look like an accident. But fate had other plans. The poison intended for me went to Veronica's father. I sat in the armchair, looking at our wedding photo in a recycled wood frame. 11 years. For 11 years, I had loved a woman who was planning my death. I taught children geography, told them about the beauty of nature and the importance of harmony with the surrounding world, and meanwhile. Chapter 4, Trap. The plan for revenge emerged in my consciousness like a sudden clearing between clouds in the mountains, just as clear and inevitable. Looking at Howard, whom I had saved in the hospital ward, I understood. I needed to make Veronica feel the same primal fear that her father had experienced. Let her know what it's like when toxin eats you from the inside, and death breathes down your neck. Of course, I wasn't going to actually poison her. My rescuer ethics wouldn't allow me to stoop to her methods. But to create the illusion of mortal danger, oh, that was within my power. I deliberately waited for her return from the business trip. 6 in the evening, her favorite time to come home, when twilight already envelops the surroundings and neighbors won't see from which car she gets out, possibly not even her own. The familiar sound of the approaching hybrid broke the silence of the autumn evening. I stood by the window, watching her park, confident, measured movements like everything she did in life, including, evidently, planning murder. Ryan, her voice sounded tired but calm when she entered the dimly lit hallway. Why is it so dark in the house? I flipped the switch. Veronica stood on the threshold, impeccable in her organic cotton suit with a perfect hairstyle and minimal makeup. Only barely noticeable shadows under her eyes betrayed fatigue or tension. "Welcome back, dear." I stepped toward her, taking her eco-friendly bag. "You must be exhausted after such an intense business trip. Sit down, I've just made coffee." She sank into her favorite chair made of recycled teak, elegantly crossing her legs. On the table already waited our best ceramic pair, the same from which Howard had drunk his last coffee. "You're so attentive today," Veronica smiled, accepting the cup. "Usually I make the coffee myself." She took her first sip, and I closely watched the expression on her face. "How's the coffee, darling? Tasty?" "Yes, quite nice." She took another sip. "Just ordinary organic coffee." "Of course it's tasty." I allowed myself a slight smile. "After all, it's the same coffee you gave me for my birthday. Remember, that special Hawaiian one?" The cup trembled in her hands. First her lips turned white, then perspiration appeared on her forehead. She tried to put the cup on the table. The ceramic mournfully knocked against the wood. "God, Ryan." Her voice broke into a whisper. I don't feel well. Urgently, call an ambulance." She reached for her bag where her phone lay, but her fingers wouldn't obey. Panic distorted her sculpted features. Her breathing became convulsive. "What's wrong, dear?" I calmly observed her frenzy. "Has something frightened you?" I slowly took out a pack of ordinary, organic, locally roasted coffee from the kitchen cabinet. Her gaze darted between the pack in my hands and the half-drunk cup. "But," I thought. "What exactly did you think, Veronica?" I allowed ice to sound in my voice. "Why are you so scared? This is just ordinary coffee from the farmer's market. Or did you expect a different reaction, the same as your father's when he tried your gift?" She slumped in the chair, like a tourist who realized he was lost in the mountains without a map. Sweat streamed down her temples, smearing her natural makeup. "I don't understand. I just suddenly felt ill. I'm tired from the trip." "Really? Then why were you so frightened of ordinary coffee? Why did you panic when I mentioned that special one?" "Ryan, stop, you're scaring me." At that moment the study door opened, revealing Howard, pale, leaning on a hiking stick but alive. Veronica let out a stifled cry, more like the whimper of an animal caught in a trap. "Dad, but you should be in the hospital." "So that you and your lover could finish what you started." His voice trembled with barely contained anger. "Decided to get rid of your own father, Veronica, and the husband who loved you all these years." She slid from the chair to her knees, her hands feebly scratching the eco-friendly bamboo floor covering. Her perfect hairstyle became disheveled, mascara smeared from tears, transforming the exquisite beauty into a pitiful semblance of the woman to whom I once promised to be with in sickness and in health. But this was just the beginning of our conversation. In my memory, all the collected evidence was already lined up, like stones for crossing a turbulent stream, and each was to become a point of support in an unpleasant conversation. Chapter 5, Reckoning. "Dad, you don't understand. This is some kind of misunderstanding." Veronica tried to rise from her knees, but her legs refused to obey. "In any case," she convulsively clutched at the last straw of justification, "why are you so sure that the coffee was the cause? It's quite possible that something else is to blame. Dad could have eaten something before coming. Maybe it's an allergic reaction. Dad, you need to undergo a complete examination. I'll pay for all the tests, any clinics." "Veronica," Howard looked at his daughter with such sadness that my heart contracted. "That day I was fasting before blood tests. I didn't eat or drink anything except that coffee. And that's why, according to the toxicologist, I survived. The poison wasn't fully absorbed into my empty stomach." But there's no evidence that I did it," she went on a desperate offensive. "It could have been anyone. It could have been you, Ryan." I slowly pulled out a folder with the collected evidence. "You know, Veronica, I called your company, And you know what I found out? They said no urgent trip to Seattle was planned. You yourself took 3 days of personal leave. A shadow ran across her face. I continued. After that call, I realized you were hiding something and carefully checked your things. In your card statement, I found strange purchases from some dubious online stores. I opened your laptop and looked through your browsing history. And you know what I found there? By this point, Veronica's face had become whiter than freshly fallen snow. But I had even more evidence. A whole list of queries about how to poison someone unnoticeably, and a history of purchases of toxic substances through anonymous services. Does that seem like a coincidence? I didn't. She lost the power of speech, but I mercilessly continued. And you know, some people are fascinated by astrological compatibility. You used to smile at it, but I never paid attention. However, now I decided to check your waste basket in the office. And what did I find there? A natal chart of compatibility, yours and Jason's. Jason, that same colleague from your work whom you constantly held up to me as an example, about whom you said, like, they and Lauren live modestly, practice conscious consumption, and are very happy. And then it all made sense. You and Jason are lovers, and your business trip was a joint romantic weekend. Events developed more rapidly. I called the company back and lied that you asked me to pick up documents from Jason. And of course, the secretary was surprised to note that you took time off on the same days. I headed straight to his house. The address was found on an invitation to a summer eco-festival. There I met his wife Lauren. She had long suspected her husband of cheating due to constant unplanned delays. Moreover, she recently installed a GPS tracker on his electric car. Veronica collapsed into the chair, broken by the weight of evidence. Her hands fell limply to her knees, and black tears of mascara ran down her cheeks. Lauren was too frightened to check the tracker data herself, but encouraged by my visit, she decided to act. We joined forces. She remotely activated the microphone on her husband's tablet and recorded your frank conversation. On the recording, everything is crystal clear, including that you plan to get my insurance, your share of the property, and start a new life with your lover. One thing remains a mystery. What fate were you preparing for poor Lauren? Shut up, screamed Veronica. You don't know half of what it was really like. Yes, that's true. However, what I've managed to find out is quite enough to send you to prison for a long time. Chapter 6, Finale. An oppressive silence hung in the room, broken only by the steady ticking of the clock, the same one Veronica had given me for my birthday. Each strike of the hand counted down the seconds of her downfall. Cornered by evidence, she finally began to speak, at first quietly, then more and more feverishly, as if the dam of years of lies had burst. The affair with Jason began 8 years ago, just when she stopped being interested in our joint hikes. 8 years of a double life, an artfully woven web of deception, in which she ultimately became entangled herself. What a disgusting creature you are. Howard's voice trembled with restrained fury. In the subdued light of the eco-friendly lamp, his face seemed carved from weathered sandstone. What a vile, despicable being. Something broke in Veronica after these words. Like a climber changing route in the middle of an ascent, she suddenly straightened up, haughtily tossed her head, and with feigned indifference sank onto the sofa, elegantly crossing her legs. This show of bravado was the last straw for Howard. The sound of a slap echoed around the room like the crack of breaking ice. Her head jerked to the side, scattering her perfect hairstyle. On her pale cheek, a crimson mark slowly appeared, like a brand of her betrayal. Lord Howard looked at his daughter as if seeing her for the first time. How ashamed I am! How ashamed that I raised such a heartless creature! To what baseness have you sunk? Dad, she pressed her palm to her burning cheek, tears glistening in her eyes. What are you saying? Yes, I stumbled, but I'm your only daughter. You were, each of Howard's words fell like a stone from a mountainside. I disown you, do you hear? I don't want to see your face anymore. All property, everything I have, will go to Ryan. Tomorrow, if I survive, I'll call a lawyer." A spasm ran across Veronica's face. The mask of arrogance cracked, revealing primal fear. "Daddy, you're not serious, are you?" Her voice broke into a squeal. "These are just heat-of-the-moment words, right? I was so stupid, didn't appreciate you. Yes, I admit I'm terrible, but I can change. Let's start over, try to fix everything." "Never." I stepped forward, feeling a cold wave of mountain river rising inside. 8 years of betrayal, Veronica. 8 years of lies. What is there to talk about? Even your father has disowned you. Now only your conscience is your judge. We're getting divorced. And I'll demand such compensation through court that you'll be paying for a long time. But I apologized. She slid from the sofa to her knees, reaching out to me. "Isn't that enough? You want to leave me without means. For me to beg for alms, is that what you want?" "Homeless shelter." I allowed an icy smirk to slide across my lips. "That's your new home. Let's see how your beloved Jason will prepare organic smoothies for you there. And you know what else? Lauren promised to stage a scene at your office tomorrow. Now that will be a truly unforgettable event. She's also filing for divorce, and you'll make a beautiful couple in line for free soup." Color drained from Veronica's face. Drops of sweat rolled down her temples, her hands shook. "No, not that." She desperately clutched at my pants. "You don't understand. I'll have such problems at work. I was just about to make partner in the company. If I get fired, I'll be left with nothing. Ryan, I beg you, stop her." I silently shook my head, watching as she slowly slid to the floor, crumpling the eco-friendly fabric of my pants in her fingers. Deciding to finish the matter, I took out my phone. "By the way, Howard," I pretended to read from the screen, "I ordered a personal horoscope for our Veronica for next month. She's into astrological predictions after all. Just listen to what it says. Maybe I'll order one for myself too." "Have mercy." She was openly sobbing now, sprawled on the floor. "Ryan, I'm begging you, have mercy." Her perfect styling had turned into a chaotic mess. Natural mascara streaked down her cheeks, transforming the well-groomed businesswoman into a pathetic parody of herself. She crawled on her knees, muttering incoherent apologies. "Apologies?" I raised an eyebrow. "I don't need your apologies. I've already contacted a lawyer. The police report will be ready by morning. Get ready." "No, no, no." She rocked back and forth, smearing tears across her face. "This is some kind of nightmare. Why, God, why?" Howard and I silently observed her hysteria. In his eyes was fixed the same mixture of pity and disgust that I felt. The denouement came quickly. Through court, I got our dwelling, that same wooden house in which she had planned to start a new life without me, and her eco-friendly hybrid. Lauren didn't let us down. Her appearance at the office became a corporate legend. The walls of the modern business center made of recycled glass had never seen such a scandal. She didn't just reveal the truth about the affair. She destroyed their reputation by playing recordings from the tablet at a general department meeting. Jason and Veronica resigned that same day, unable to bear the disgrace. As far as I know, they still haven't found new jobs, spending their last savings on legal battles in Lauren's divorce proceedings. They say their passionate love didn't withstand the test of reality. Secret meetings in eco-hotels and romantic hikes along mountain trails at my expense are one thing, and facing harsh reality, where there's no place for beautiful illusions, is quite another. Now they live separately, in rented rooms on the outskirts of the city, collecting the fragments of their destroyed destinies. Justice prevailed, albeit at such a bitter price, like after an avalanche when everyone survived, but the landscape changed forever.